Hello, everyone. Welcome to the CardFellas Show, Episode 5. We're back here, and we're going to be talking something that maybe others don't know much about. I'll be honest with you, I learned a little bit about this set myself. We're talking hockey cards today. But before we get that, let's do the introductions. I'm Matt. That's Chris. Chris, how's it going tonight?
It's good. I did some research myself tonight because I didn't know a lot about 1979 Topps, but I just know that it's cool. It's
very cool.
Blue background and Wayne Gretzky's rookies in there, which makes it even more cool. So it's a set that is really interesting. And while I was doing my research today, I actually bought a 1979 Topps hockey card.
Did you?
Not a Gretzky rookie, but one of the guys in the set, it's his last card. And while I was looking him up, I saw this card and went, that's a really nice card. I thought it was as good a shape as you could expect. I mean, obviously it's on eBay, so you don't know what it really looks like. But I paid $4 for a Ken Dryden 1979 Topps card.
There you go. The Ken Dryden last card of his career.
Yep.
Now, let me ask you this. So when I was doing my research, and we'll get into this a little bit, but this is Ken Dryden's last card. Right. There were some cards that were printed that had some black writing on the front that said "now retired."
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I don't know how many of those cards were printed, but there were some that I saw that had that on there.
Okay. Well, I'm going to look at the one that I just bought. I don't think
it was pretty prominent, so you would notice it.
All right. Let's see. Yeah, it's not prominent on there. It does say All-Star on it.
Yeah. No, this is like a little black printing that said "now retired." So if you search the Ken Dryden card, one might come up, but I don't know how many of those they printed or what what level of printing that went into. But yeah, so good for you. You purchased. You spent some money after doing that research, huh?
Yeah, not big money, but
yeah,
it's just fun to have an example of these things. And
right,
Ken Dryden ended up doing the broadcast for the 1980 Miracle on Ice. So I mean,
yes, he did.
Kind of a cool guy. The guy's in the Hall of Fame. So for $4, I said, let's go for it.
And one of the things that's cool that we're going to talk about, we usually start the show with something cool, interesting, or otherwise, and that's a cool thing for you. You might have something more, but one of the things I learned from the Ken Dryden card is he had a brother who was also a goalie named Dave Dryden, that was on the back of the card as kind of the fun fact, and we'll get into that coming up. But I don't know if that was your cool thing, but that is still pretty cool. But if it wasn't, do you have anything else you want to start the show with?
Well, that wasn't my cool thing, but I can save what my cool thing was for the end of the show if you want.
All right, that sounds great. Yeah, I have a couple things to talk about right off the bat. One of the interesting things, cool things that I saw today, PSA announced their most submitted player of any sport, any athlete in February. Any guesses on who you think it is if you didn't see it? Or if you did see it, who was it?
I'm going to say John Morant.
It was Joe Burrow. So the most submitted card in February was Joe Burrow.
Oh, most submitted card. All right, I was thinking
most
submitted card. That makes a lot of sense.
Yes. So Joe Burrow coming off his obviously his Super Bowl appearance. So I found that interesting. That wasn't my cool fact or interesting otherwise. I just saw that recently. I thought I'd bring it up on this show because I know our fans are very interested in what's happening in the hobby currently. So Joe Burrow, a hot card. And, one of the things that I'm going to talk about at the end of the show is speculation. And I was one of those, and I know you were too. We've talked about on the show. We speculated Joe Burrow would come back from his injury, probably stronger than he was before. You and I had no expectation that'd be in the Super Bowl. So I have a bunch of Joe Burrows that I submitted back in February of last year that are coming back from PSA very, very soon. So I'll be ahead of the game. And I'm going to hopefully do a live reveal on this show, not knowing the grades, so you can see my face when I show you either the excitement or disappointment when I get my grades. But one of the things I do want to talk about, another card we've been talking about over the past couple of weeks, Wander Franco, 2022 Topps, Series 1, it's out, it's hot, it's starting to lose a little bit of steam. But then this card comes into the equation, and I'm going to butcher this guy's name, but his name is Brett Kamenkacholi. He pulled this card on one of his live broadcasts. He was doing a live stream, pulled this 1-of-1 platinum Wander Franco Gold Cup card out of Series 1 Topps 2022. So according to the article that I read, he spent about $400 for the box, and he pulls this card. Some people have estimated it around $500,000. I don't think it'll reach there, but all these cards and even ticket stubs that we've talked about have reached astronomical numbers that I never thought was possible. So clearly this was the card that people were looking for, waiting for it to get pulled, and it got pulled by Brett, which congrats to him. I love seeing those, especially when a guy's filming it and got it. It was just him and a camera. I mean, it wasn't like a bunch of people and they weren't, hooting and hollering. It was just him and people following along. If you watch the rebroadcast on YouTube, you see when he hits it, everybody's cheering for him. That's what I love about the hobby. Everybody's cheering for him. Everybody wanted this card, but he got it. And kudos to him and congratulations to him for doing it on a live stream. And now we know it has been pulled. But there's still other Wander Franco numbered cards, plenty of them out there that people have a chance to pull. But this one was kind of the holy grail of a otherwise lackluster set.
So this one is actually out of the first edition set, which is kind of a much shorter run than the regular top set. So not only is it, rare being a one-on-one,
yes,
but
I should have said that. Yes.
Out of a much shorter print set. And like you said, it was a $400 box compared to something like a $200 box in the regular tops. But yeah. So was this like a break type of video, or is this a guy opening his own box on that?
Just guy opening his own box. Yeah, he was just opening it live and hit it. It wasn't a break. It wasn't. This card's not going to anybody but him. So it's gonna be interesting to see. Probably off to grading, and then from there, probably off to one of the auction sites to see what happens and what kind of price this guy can fetch. But it's really going to be interesting. We've talked about this too. What is the baseball market going to be like? Wander Franco really is an unknown commodity. Baseball season is an unknown entity at this point. So there's still going to be a market for this guy, no question about it, and still a market for baseball cards. But it'd have been interesting to see if this could hit auction and this guy makes his debut and he's a superstar with the buzz. And, as the hobby goes today, if a guy's hot, that card is even hotter. So really interesting to see how it plays out. And obviously we'll use this time to share it with others. But another thing I saw that there was someone did pull one of the Memorial Day, I think it was a Memorial Day camo Wander Francos, and that one sold for like $5,000. So other cards are being pulled that are numbered by him, and gosh, the market's just hot for him right now. So I think my personal opinion on Wander Franco is if you pull it, you sell it right now, maybe get it graded quickly and then get it posted. I think there's just such a hot market for it.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you go back, I think a really good example of what we're seeing with him was 2 years ago with Jason Dominguez. Anything that had Jason Dominguez on it a few years ago was selling at a major premium. And of course, it's not like anyone, I think, that's educated about baseball expected him to make an impact right away. He was a young kid, but he hasn't, because he's just a young kid and it's going to take
a young kid, right?
He gets there. So right now you can buy Dominguez cards. I mean, they're not given away, but much, much less than what they were 2 years ago when they were first hitting the market and first had all the buzz around it. So
that's a great point. And when we got back kind of into the hobby, Chris, think about the cards that we were collecting or people were collecting. It was Jason Dominguez and it was Zion Williamson. So like your speculation sometimes can go south real quick. So you just, as a seller, I think for the most part, you unload it as quickly as possible when the market's hot.
Right. It's high now. And Dominguez could end up being a superstar. He could end up being a Ken Griffey Jr. kind of guy. And like we were saying in the last show, Ken Griffey Jr. was drafted in 1987. So
Yeah.
Even as great as he was and as phenomenal as he was, it wasn't an overnight story. It just never is with baseball. It takes
Right.
a few years for these guys to get into the minor league system and make an impact. They're usually not making an impact immediately after they first kind of become this hot prospect kind of commodity. So
yeah, so that's kind of the cool thing I saw, and I know you said you're going to talk about something that you thought cool later at the show. So let's dive right into this 1979, 1980 hockey set, shall we?
We shall. King TV, what's going on? Thanks for joining the show and saying hi. So the
appreciate it.
1979 top set hockey set is, I think, probably best known for those blue borders, and of course this card right here, the Wayne Gretzky rookie card. Obviously an iconic set of the most iconic hockey player to ever put on skates. But a lot of other cool stuff as well in this set. So I'll let you kind of go through some of that, Matt.
Yeah. So obviously hockey cards, most sets had two versions, right? You had your tops and your O-Pee-Chee. The United States had the standard top set, while Canada had O-Pee-Chee. And that was something that Tops and O-Pee-Chee had a marketing agreement. So digging into the research of this set, you start learning. You start going, okay, Tops and O-Pee-Chee had a marketing agreement. And they said, okay, O-Pee-Chee, you take Canada. Tops, you take the United States. Actually, O-Pee-Chee had been around for a lot longer. I mean, and did you know that O-Pee-Chee started the gum in the pack before Tops did? I didn't know that. But anyway, so you have one set from O-Pee-Chee, which has 396 cards. And then you had the Tops one that was in America. That one had 264 cards. So that was pretty standard as well. O-Pee-Chee had more. But you mentioned it, Chris. The unique look of this set is what makes it an icon. And those blue borders that were such a shift. It's much like we talked about the 1985 Tops football. It was such a shift from what Tops and O-Pee-Chee had done in years past. Again, it was very traditional. It was white borders up until that point. So you looked at this card and thought, okay, this is different. This is a unique look. They were trying to capture the newness of the appeal of the look, or a new hobby, or whatever the case may be. New people to the hobby with this new look. But in doing that, much like any other cards that have those colored borders, it became an absolute nightmare for anybody who wanted to get these cards in good condition. And that's the one thing that we learned, right, from the 85 Tops football is that's great that you went with a bold look, but you're going to cause all kinds of issues when it comes to keeping those borders in really pristine conditions. And we'll get into the numbers, but you know that, Chris, like it was hard to find cards that stayed in any type of great condition from this set.
I don't think they thought about that when they were putting those together. I think they figured, well, this will sound good in the spokes of someone's bicycle tire, and that'll be just fine.
I just don't know what I guess I would love to hear the marketing talk and like why they decided to go completely change the borders of the colors, and just what the decision behind that was. And I don't know if it's just, like I said, to stand out, or if they knew that this is something different, this is what people want. But they only did it for 1 year. If you look at it, the next year they went back to the white borders. And so it was this 1 year, and it wasn't like it was a, special anniversary edition or anything like that. You just kind of wonder what was going through their minds when they did this. And, obviously the research didn't get that deep, but it just made it so difficult to get this card in any type of good condition, either in the moment, I guess, or later on now with people chasing for that Gretzky card.
Indeed. I think it's one of those things that I think they just try to change things up once in a while. One of my favorite sets, which is incredibly vibrant white borders, is the 1985 Tops hockey set. To that set almost looks, it's so bright that it reminds me of the modern OPG cards that
Yes,
came out with
right,
those big backgrounds. And when you first see it, that's kind of what you think it is. But
right.
I think it's just something you go back and look at some of the other issues that have been out. I believe it was the 70 Tops football that has kind of that baby blue with some orange on the top, and I mean it was a
Right.
beautiful
Yeah.
card. And I just don't think that when they make those sets, and I think even today when they make sets with those challenging borders on them, I think they do it knowing that this is going to create a spot where if you do have a card that's in perfect condition, that's going to be a premium. But I think back then, I think they just did stuff to do it, and I don't think they really
That's right.
thought too much about what the value or what the condition of these cards were going to be down the road. So
Right. Yeah. I absolutely. They weren't thinking about PSA and grading back then. That's for sure. But this set really was the changing. It's kind of the way we looked at it too. Is I think this is the changing of the guard set. We talked about the Gretzky card, the iconic rookie card that many collectors, whether they're hockey collectors or not, they've wanted this card because Wayne Gretzky is the icon of hockey, and so to have his rookie card in any type of condition is considered one of the holy grails of the hobby. But when we look at the people that we said goodbye to, if you will, from the hobby, Gordie Howe, Bobby Hull, Stan Mikita, and the guy that you mentioned, Ken Dryden. There's the Ken Dryden card. Those are the last time that these guys had cards. There's a Mike Bossy card. Mike Bossy was a huge part of the hockey world back then. And so those are the guys that people were collecting back then. But here you have the young guy Gretzky coming in, and then you got these guys going out. This wasn't Mike Bossy's last card, but the other guys it was. And so now when you dive into the set and you look at the set, you look at the man, what a unique experience you have flipping from card to card. You have a close-up of Bobby Hull. You have a helmetless Gordie Howe. You have, Ken Dryden skating off the ice or on the ice without his helmet. So it's just, the uniqueness of the pictures even is just, fantastic. And that's to me, this screams of old time hockey. And that's what I love about this too. Because I think that's when, again, we go back to when sports were more pure, and nothing was more pure than hockey back in the 70s and 80s, man. These guys look like they would go to the locker room in between periods and drink beer.
Right.
And actually, so as we were talking about the front, the back of the card was almost just as cool, if not cooler. You have the skate print or the skate outline, and then you have the print inside the skate. And speaking of beer, this is Bobby Hull's card.
Yeah.
Look at Bobby is associated with a beer firm. Yeah. Did you see the front of the card with Bobby? Bobby looks like he could pound back a couple of cold ones. And that's what I love about this, right?
Right. Yeah, I remember Brett at the All-Star game a couple years ago. He was associated with some beer that night too.
the Hall family probably knows their way around whatever a beer firm is. Yeah. I don't even know what a beer is. That a beer company? I guess is that a?
I think that's what that was supposed to be. Yeah.
But back to those, back to the back of the cards. Again, they had that outline with the, the skate there. You have not a whole lot of stats in there, and that was one of the things that was brought up too. You don't have a lot. It's like the 1 year prior, and then you have his lifetime. But that little caricature up in the right-hand corner there, along with a little bit of, a tidbit, like Brian Trottier's, for instance. It says Brian is a country and western singer. And so, how great is that? And so I looked at what Wayne Gretzky's was, and unfortunately it was pretty boring. But then again, Wayne wasn't really much back then. He was just a kid. But it said, let's see, Gretzky, it said Wayne debuted in the WHA at age 17. So I went digging. I'm like, what is the WHA? I'm like, oh, that must be the Western Hockey League. Now, okay, before you switch off this picture, so this was the OPG. This was the difference. So this was in francs. This was the French. So the French version was the O-Pee-Chee, and then the English version obviously was the Tops. So here was the Tops one, and this was an interest. So I went down a rabbit hole on this one, Chris, and I got to tell this story. So it said Wayne debuted in the WHA at age 17, and I'm like, what the heck's the WHA? I was like, oh, that must be the old Western Hockey League, and it must have came. No, it wasn't. So the WHA was actually a professional league that competed with the NHL. And then in 1979, right around this time this set was made, they merged with the NHL. The WHA and the NHL merged. And they got the WHA teams that joined the NHL were the Hartford Whalers, Quebec Nordiques, Winnipeg Jets, and Edmonton Oilers. Now, the Oilers got to keep Gretzky. The only stipulation was they got the last draft pick. So they moved all the way to the bottom. Now, as I'm digging again, I keep going down this rabbit hole. Now I find out, and this has nothing to do with the set, but I found it interesting as hell. So please bear with me. Now, how the Oilers got Gretzky in the first place is quite the yarn. So here, the story goes like this, and I'm reading it. So I just want to make sure I get this right. So Gretzky was originally on the Indianapolis Racers of the WHA. Now, the owners of that team were having financial trouble, and the franchise was failing. Now, legend has it that the Indianapolis owner offered Gretzky his contract to Edmonton and Winnipeg, but only if they play a game of backgammon, the owners. Now, the Winnipeg owner said, no, thanks, we're good. But the Edmonton owner, his name is Peter Pocklington, said, let's go. So Pocklington put up some like rare art as kind of his part of the bet. Well, at the end of the day, the Indianapolis owner lost, signed the contract over to Edmonton, and that's how Gretzky became part of the Edmonton WHA team, or WHA team that eventually became the. So if that story is true, that's a hell of a story. But Gretzky played like 8 games in Indianapolis before he went to Edmonton. Now, other people tell the story, well, Indianapolis was already a failing. We knew that they weren't going to get an NHL team, so he got traded to Edmonton so Edmonton could bolster, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, if that story is kind of true, that's a hell of a story. But let's get back to the set. And I want to talk about that Gretzky card. It is by far the top graded card in this set, and it's not even close. So the Gretzky Topps card, so non-O-Pee-Chee, 7,177 graded cards. The O-Pee-Chee card has been graded 7,480 times. So just around 14,500 times this card has been graded, whether Topps or O-Pee-Chee. There have been 4 PSA 10s, 2 from each set. That's it. And so again, talking about the scarcity of valuable, high-end, elite cards is next to impossible. And that's why this Gretzky card sold recently, within the past year, $3.75 million for a PSA 10. And I believe that was for an O-Pee-Chee card. $3.75 million for an O-Pee-Chee 10. That is ridiculous.
Well, just imagine there was only 4 Michael Jordan rookies in a PSA 10 and what that would sell for. Gretzky is probably more than Jordan to hockey than Jordan is to basketball, in my opinion.
I would agree with that. That's a fair statement.
Yeah.
And this is an ultra rare card. Like when we talk about art and sports cards as art, this is rare. This is art. And even the PSA 9s sell for $15,000. 8s around $8,000. 7s are actually a pretty good deal at $2,500. I think that's and that's the most commonly graded Topps card is a PSA 7. And actually for O-Pee-Chee, the most commonly graded card or most common grade is a 6. So there's when you start looking at even like the 9s, there are 91 9s in O-Pee-Chee, 127 9s in Topps. So even the 9s are hard to achieve. Even the 8s. I mean, it's truly remarkable when you look at that. And then when you look at the rest of the set, here's the thing that strikes me is fascinating. After the Gretzky card, the most commonly graded card is Gordie Howe, and that's been graded between the two sets just over 1,000 times. So like Gretzky's card is really the only card anybody wanted to get graded out of this. Like 30% of all of cards that were graded in the set were the Gretzky card. So it tells you there wasn't much left in this set, but it's iconic because of Wayne.
Indeed. And I actually want to spend some of your money for you right now.
Please do.
When I was doing some research, you like to invest, you like to do these things, and I like to buy sets. So I was looking to see how much a set of 1979 Topps hockey sells for. And it really depends on the condition of the Gretzky. But one just sold with a raw Gretzky in it. And the card actually looks like the corners and edges look really, really good. It was off center. I think it would be safe to say that card was going to get a 7.
Okay.
That set sold for $880.
Wow. Okay. So that would have been a fantastic investment, in my opinion.
Yeah. Even if it ended up being a 6, the 6s are selling for $1,500 to $2,000. So, and they very regularly sell for under $1,000, these sets. And, obviously the condition of the Gretzky varies in all of them. Yeah. But when I saw that set, I went, whoever bought that set is probably going to do pretty well, because the Gretzky, I thought, looked really, really good other than the off center on it. I think if had it been centered, I think it definitely could have gotten a 9.
Wow, that's really interesting. I wish you would have spent my money for me there, because I would have definitely been happy with that purchase, and as I'm sure somebody was. And you're right. I mean, that's the one thing about this set is if the Gretzky card's in somewhat good shape, I'd say 6 or above. You're still, at $1,000, you're still probably going to make some money. But there isn't much else really to get graded. And as I mentioned, I think there weren't many. There were about, 7 or 8 other cards that even had been graded more than 100 times. So again, it shows you that there's not a whole lot in the set. There's not a lot of probably faith that the cards are going to come back in really good with high grades, I should say. One of the things that I found interesting, and this was not in the top set, but it was in the O-Pee-Chee set, was there was an emblem of the Oilers. Really cool, the iconic Edmonton Oilers emblem. And then it had the checklist on the back of it, and it had obviously Wayne Gretzky's name. That one had been graded 308 times, which made it the 3rd most graded card behind Gretzky and behind Gordie Howe. So I found that really interesting. I think you're going to pull it up. Yeah, that's the card right there. I mean, it's pretty cool. It's a nice looking card. I mean, it is awesome, but to be graded more than Bobby Hull and Bobby Smith, and the enforcer Dave Semenko, and the guy you purchased tonight, Ken Dryden, and the guy Mike Bossy, who we've seen, and Brian Trottier, the country and western singer. I mean, it's fascinating. I find it really interesting that you can dig and find. I'm looking at all these cards. I'm like, okay, which of these cards has been graded more than 100 times? That's kind of your outlier. And here's one that's 300, doesn't even have a player on it, for crying out loud. So I don't know, but it was an interesting study, to say the least. And as you mentioned, that set, there were no factory sets of this back in the day, as far as I know. I couldn't find any. I couldn't find anything that identified anything as a factory set. And so all of these were hand collated. And that means that they were opened out of the boxes. And those boxes and those packs cost 20 cents per pack back in the day when they were released. And one box that I saw recently sold for, it was sold for $46,000. That's the BBCE wrapped box that you're looking at right there. Someone bought that last month for $46,000. Not sure if they opened it, not sure if they held on to it, but that was one of the more recent sales. So you can sell, people are still chasing that Gretzky out of boxes. I don't know how many of those boxes still exist, And then there was also a vending box. So that one sold for, I think, $21,000 within the last year. So, again, that was another one that was wrapped, authenticated. There it is right there. But, interesting that there was a vending box for this. And, I'm sure somebody looked in there. And when you talk about there's, vending box has 500 cards in it. There's 264 cards in the set. You're probably going to get a Gretzky, maybe 2. So it's just, that's the interesting part too, is, if you're going to buy, if you're really looking to do this, if you want to really go chase this, the top set is probably the easier find for a Gretzky. You're probably going to find that easier, period. I don't know what the O-Pee-Chee print runs were and how much availability was, but the tops ones are ones you see more often.
Right. And I just wonder what the, card count in the O-Pee-Chee packs would have been as well. Like I've bought some O-Pee-Chee baseball card boxes before, and I think you get like 48 packs instead of 36 packs, but I think the packs only had like 8 cards in them. So
yeah,
it wasn't
I think you're right. I'm trying to think back, but yeah, the math was a little off. It was Canadian math. It was like metrics or something. Do you know, hey, another side note that I found diving into this, in 1982-83 hockey, there wasn't a top set. It was just O-Pee-Chee. So Topps didn't produce a hockey set in 82-83. It was just O-Pee-Chee. Found that interesting.
There you go. I didn't know that.
Another little tidbit. So I went down another rabbit hole. I was on eBay trying to find O-Pee-Chee cards from that era, and just like, man, this got to be rare. Again, I like the rare stuff. I like to find those little nuggets, and there it was, a 1982-83 Gretzky O-Pee-Chee. I'm like, I would be on that. So again, I get off task real quick, but it's just it's all connected to the research that we did on this set. And I think it was, when I mentioned the Gretzky card being the most graded, the O-Pee-Chee set has 28,000 graded cards total. 28% of those are Gretzky cards. And for Topps, let's see what the number was. I can't remember. The top set has even fewer graded cards, just over 21,000 graded cards from the top set. 34% of those are the Gretzky cards. So you just kind of see right there, there isn't a whole lot else that people were going to willing to chase and go after and get graded. But just interesting numbers, and just a really cool set to really like deep dive look into. And I think when you see that Gretzky card at a show, it always catches your eye.
Sure.
That's the thing. That's the thing I think everybody pays attention to. And we talk about iconic sets and iconic cards. I think that's kind of the test, is when you pass a table, what grabs your eye? And I think the Michael Jordan 86 always does, always will. And I think this Gretzky card's right there with it.
You notice in the card, he is wearing a helmet. And a lot of the other guys we were talking about on these cards are not wearing helmets when they're on the ice. 1979 was actually the first year. I like to look at these things sometimes in a historical perspective. It was the first year the NHL made helmets a requirement. So any incoming rookies would have had to wear a helmet. The veterans who wanted to go without had to sign a waiver. But at that time, I think I heard that 70% of the players were already wearing them. Obviously, the old timers like Gordie Howe probably weren't going to wear them just because they had never worn them throughout their career. But that was the year that they came out with the helmet rule. 79 was also it was a pretty interesting year as far as just the league goes. The Islanders won the cup that year, but the Flyers actually broke a record, and it still stands as the longest undefeated streak in professional sports history. The Flyers lost the second game of the season, and from then on, they went on a 35-game run without a loss. They went 25-0-10. Ended up losing to the Islanders in the Stanley Cup final, but
Wow. What a run. Wow.
Could you imagine what the standings looked like after that? Started the season.
And we didn't talk about any of the Islanders. None of the Islanders cards from that year, maybe did Bobby Smith. I don't know if Bobby Smith played for the Islanders or the Flyers then, but
there's your guy right there, Brian Trottier.
Islanders. We're talking about the Flyers though. You're talking about
Flyers, sure.
Yeah. So, but none of the Flyer players were any of the top graded. So, it's not like they had a superstar icon that everybody was, chasing back in the air. I'd have to go back and look at that roster. I mean, and getting the Broad Street Bullies and all that, but it's that's quite a statistic. And again, it's one of those things that just makes the year iconic, right? When that stuff, and that's what we in the hobby, we start to connect the iconic year with the cards, and it all brings it together to that complete holistic sports experience that we love. And we have seen so many great highlights of Wayne Gretzky over the years doing what he does best. And here it is, his first card in, his long career, which is again, that's what makes it iconic, an icon on an iconic card.
Yeah. Gretzky had the rookie card that year. There was actually 7 Hall of Famers that made their debut that season. Mark Messier, Ray Bourque, but 7 total Hall of Famers on the ice in the NHL for the first time that season. The Messier card would come the next year, but the Gretzky obviously was the only one of that group that had a card that season. But it was a heck of a season as far as hockey goes.
That's an interesting interesting point about the hockey season too. Is they don't have updates. So these rookie guys, you don't know if they're going to be in the league, and all of a sudden here they are. It's their rookie year. You have to wait a year for their card. There isn't an update or an extended tops traded set. And so those, even though they started that year and they played and they were rookies and that was their first year, no, you had to wait a year for their card to come out. But everybody knew Gretzky was going to be the guy. He was the anointed one. So the card came, and here we are looking at it from afar. I don't own it, but I'd sure love to get one eventually.
He had 137 points that year. He tied for the league.
Jeez, what a unique talent. And again, now you understand why people want this card. Just what he is and what he meant to the sport. Just unreal.
I wanted to bring up, and you had talked about this earlier, but those cartoons that were on the back. That's what I loved about.
Good, man.
About some of those old school Topps football cards, like the 84 set had those on them. The 85 set I know had those on the back of the card. But that's one of those things that we need to have come back into cards, because I always thought that was super cool.
Yeah, one of the things that was interesting too about sports card collecting back in the day, that's where you got a lot of your information about players. The internet was not obviously around, and newspapers didn't really cover guys that in depth. So you had to look. We studied the back of cards to get to know players, and you started realizing how good guys were when you'd look at their cards and go, "Wow, this guy had this many RBIs, this many home runs, this." You really got an idea of how good these players were by looking at the stats on the card or learning something else about them. I will tell you, I will never forget that I share a birthday with Willie Mcgee, the former Cardinals speedster. And I knew that because I looked at the back of cards and I tried to find every birthday that matched with me. Right. And so I will never forget that. And that's just kind of how you spent your time, is trying to figure out, every little thing about these players, and especially the ones that you like. And they became your guys. And any little tidbit that you could find was it was cool. It was information. It was useless information, but it was information nonetheless about these athletes, like Brian Trottier.
Right.
He's a country and western singer.
I always loved that Donruss baseball cards had the complete name on the back, so you'd get the middle name.
Yes.
And it was like, what is Oil Can Boyd's real name? These are things that you need to know.
Dennis. But yes, you did. You find out what these guys' real names were, and you sometimes just Vincent. Who's Vincent Jackson?
Right.
Oh, that's Bo.
Who's Orenthal?
Who's Orenthal? We found that out though in court. We didn't find that on the back of a card. But
right.
it's those. The back of the cards were sometimes as cool as the front, and you spend time looking at the front, but you spend more time, looking at the back. And I think this card was one of those that just, it's art on the back as much as it is. Well, I don't want to say as much. It's as close to art on the back as it is on the front, because the front is still truly a piece of work and a piece of art, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that disappoints me about the new Panini cards. When we got back in the hobby and you open the card and the front is super cool, and the back, it's like, come on. Somebody spent 5 seconds designing that.
Yeah, it is. It's the change. It's the difference, right? It's everything that we enjoyed about the hobby, but nowadays it's a little different. We go through a process and a production phase that just is simple. But I don't have much more to say about this set, Chris. I don't know if you do.
I think we can.
I went through my notes. I'm trying to
think we can put a bow on it. And
I got to show you the cool stuff on the back. Tell you that cool story about backgammon, if it's true. But I think this is a good one. This is a good set. I had fun learning about it, and I hope people enjoyed learning a little bit more about hockey. I know hockey is really under collected, if you will, in the hobby. I think it's probably a distant fourth for the big four, if you look at football, basketball, baseball being the other three. So anytime we can give some knowledge on hockey and share some light on that, I think it's a good thing. So now you said you had something cool you want to end the show with rather than start the show with. So I'm going to let you take it away as we transition to our closing time.
Well, here's the thing. I didn't tease in the title what I'm going to talk about at the beginning, so I'm going to save that for the next show. So I'll just go with
now you're going to tease it again.
Yeah, we'll save that for the next show. So I'm going to go with what I teased in the description of the video. And this is one of our favorite sets to talk about. This is a story about the '86 Fleer basketball set. And, this is
the Junk Wax era. Yes.
The Junk Wax 86. Exactly. Well, that's really the crux of the story, is that people keep finding this stuff. I just read a story actually tonight of a collector in Minnesota who he knew it was there. He had bought a wax box in 1986 from the general store in town. Price tags were still on the packs, 40 cents a pack. Had the box sitting in there, and he's like, yeah, I paid less than $20 for this box, and it's just been sitting in my closet. And he's retiring now and wanted to put some extra money in his pocket to jumpstart his retirement, so he sold it to a collector, I believe, from Iowa. And that gentleman obviously took a road trip over, wanted to take a look at everything. And, you and I, through our 1990 Fleer basketball experiment, know that you can tell, what's in every pack basically by what the top card is.
Right.
And we never looked at this closely, but according to this guy, you can actually tell if the packs have been tampered with by what order those are in there, which I would think that they probably could have been tampered with anyway. They priced it, because apparently every pack had a price tag on it. But this collector who bought the box went through the whole box and believes there are 3 Michael Jordan rookies in that box. And he said that's, pretty normal, as we know, with the size of the set and the size of the wax box. So he believes there's 3 Jordan rookies in the box. But he said he got lucky because he believes there's 4 stickers in the box.
Okay.
They did not say what he paid for it. That was kept private. But just another one of them Jordan boxes, or those 86 Fleer boxes that are out there that were found in a closet. And apparently the box is at BBCE right now, which I don't understand how you would wrap it. Obviously, it's been opened, it's been looked through. So I don't know what the wrap designation on that would be, but
Is he wrapping it, or is he just authenticating it? Just
Well,
to make sure
that's what he's doing. That's so.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I dream of that day where you can just walk into some weird store and there's that box of cards just sitting there, man. Like some thrift store in the middle of nowhere, and there they have just a pile of old wax that had been sitting in it. Like, just happened once. It doesn't have to be 86, but just something just truly unique that, you know, they pulled out of wherever. That'd be so cool. That would be so cool.
The guys from Ripping Vintage Wax, I think last night, busted a box of 88 Flair basketball, and I think they were getting like $300 a pack for it. Like, when I saw the price, I'm like, wow. They didn't actually open
80,
the pack.
So 88.
The
88
Pippen
was,
rookie.
Yeah, right. Pippen rookie. Grayish white border. Yep.
So
wow. Okay.
Astonished with what the packs were fetching with that one. So
those
they didn't open the packs. They broke the box on camera, but literally just put the packs in a team set bag and then sealed it with the guy's name with a sticker on it. But they did not open any of the packs in the video. But
so
they
36,
broke the box.
30. So we're saying 36.
Yep.
You said 36 packs.
Yep.
Times 300. Yeah, it's over 10,000. It's almost $11,000.
Let me see if I can pull it up really quick.
For 88. That's interesting. That's really interesting. Well, I don't know if I would chase a Jordan card for $300 in that set, but maybe I don't know. I like the gamble of. I've told this story before. I like the gamble of PSA. I don't necessarily like the gamble of opening packs, and I'd rather buy raw and see if I can, you know, turn that into a good grade. It's just something. I mean, I enjoy opening wax, but you know, $300 for a pack to try and pull a Jordan card. It's just. I don't know if I'd do that. I don't know if I'd do that.
I don't think I would.
But a lot of people do it.
I can't find the post where they were actually looking to sell it. There is a post up of him opening the box, but I don't see the post up there anymore with the price of the box of the packs. So
here's what I found interesting this week. If you're done with your story,
I'm done talking about junk wax era basketball. Go ahead.
Yeah, 86 and 88, junk wax era basketball. Here's Chris, you know me. I like to gamble. I like to speculate. I like to do all that stuff. And one of the places I always look for, you know, the top speculation when it comes to an athlete or athletes is you look to the gamblers. The gamblers are sometimes the most dialed in to what trends are likely to happen because there's significant amounts of money involved. And so when you start looking at how gamblers are looking at players, there's a correlation to the hobby there. And one of the things that I've shifted my attention to right now is the NFL. It's the off season. Nobody's really collecting. Nobody's really looking because there's not really a lot of buzz. I'm not saying nobody. There's fewer people that are collecting right now because the NFL is not going on. And so now is the perfect time for speculation. And I've been paying attention to a lot of fantasy football geeks, and their speculation is the fantasy football darling that they're putting all of their energy behind for next season is Trey Lance. They believe Trey Lance has the potential to be a top 10 fantasy quarterback. And I get it. He's got a lot of potential to play a significant role in San Francisco with Jimmy Garoppolo potentially on his way out. Trey Lance also has kind of that sexy kind of game to him. He can run, he can pass. He's kind of got that Kyler Murray type of vibe. And then the other part of it is the unknown, right? Who is he? What is he all about? We got a little bit of a glimpse, but not a lot. And then lastly, he's in a Kyle Shanahan offense, which is very favorable to quarterbacks. So when those people start talking about this guy could be taking that leap, I start thinking, okay, maybe Trey Lance is a guy I start to target. So I start looking at some of the Trey Lance raw cards, and I start looking and pricing those and see where those are at compared to the cards that, are more established quarterbacks. And I say, okay, this is it. So that's one guy who I was surprised a little bit to hear people talk about. After digging in a little bit, now I understand why. I'm still very bullish on Trevor Lawrence. I think now that Urban Meyer's gone, I think he is going to be a guy that's going to have a strong career in Jacksonville. They've got to start righting that ship, but I think he's got a solid foundation. But after him, maybe Trey Lance is that guy, and maybe he's the speculative guy that you want to start thinking about collecting going into next year. And Chris, who do you think the other quarterback is? He was a rookie last year that people are buzzing about that maybe you wouldn't have thought about. You got any guesses?
I'm going to say the fellow playing for the Jets.
Zach Wilson?
You got it.
That is not correct.
Okay.
I am still high on Zach Wilson myself. I think he will break out eventually. But Davis Mills, quarterback out of Houston. So a lot of people, and I don't want to say fantasy football, but football minds in general really dissected his game, and they think that he has something that could translate to a good long NFL career. So he wasn't by far the sexiest pick last year. Nobody really knew who he was, but he got an opportunity for a woefully awful Houston Texans team. And it sounds like Deshaun Watson, who knows what's going to happen to him. But if the Texans can smooth things out, figure things out, they are a mess. I'm not saying they're going to be right the ship this year, but a lot of people are talking about Davis Mills being a thing in the NFL. And, as we've seen with some guys, you look at guys like, Tom Brady. I'm not saying the guy's Tom Brady. Don't accuse me of saying, but nobody knew who Tom Brady was. And then he got a chance, right? Like these guys, it could happen. And the speculation, or not the speculation, the thoughts around the NFL is Davis Mills could be something based on the small sample size we saw. So if we're looking at speculation heading into the offseason, who do you want to go look for? I'm looking for Trevor Lawrence. I'm looking for Trey Lance. And I am looking for Davis Mills. Those are my guys. So don't be afraid to look to Vegas, look to the football experts in the gambling world to help figure out who do you want to speculatively go after in the hobby. I've done this with baseball too. You and I've talked about this too, Chris. Like we'll go and look at the odds to win the American League Rookie of the Year, the odds to win National League Rookie of the Year. Find the guys near the top of the list and go get a bunch of their cards and just kind of sit on them and see what happens. And that's a strategy, that's a thing, but that's kind of how I'm speculating right now on the hobby. Am I crazy? What do you think?
Well, I think you got to be careful with those futures bets, Rookie of the Year, especially in, if we're talking about baseball and we're talking about Rookie of the Year in March, a lot of those, those odds are based on not what the actual chances of that player making it, but where the money is going. And I would guess right now the money is all going to Wander Franco, even though we don't really know. I mean, obviously it gives you a good list of like, these are the guys that are on the target, but I would also say,
yes,
be careful with that just because, a lot of the futures bets this time of year is based on dumb money, and dumb money attracts more dumb money. So be careful with that. But I'll go back to your football stuff though. I do like Trey Lance because of the coaching situation and, just the organization around him is really good. And if they decide to put their chips in on him, he's going to get what he needs. I mean, I personally think that Justin Fields is a better quarterback as far as skills goes, but the Bears are just a mess. They have been, and I don't think they've done much to show me that they're getting any better. They obviously got rid of the coach, but they bring in a defensive coach as the new head coach. So not super promising for me if I want to be a Justin Fields collector. So I agree with you that I think Trey Lance and Trevor Lawrence and obviously Mac Jones are kind of the class of that class, and whether Davis Mills comes in and jumps into that group, I guess we'll find out. But with Houston again, if we take a look at the franchise, they don't have a lot of history of making good decisions. So
they do not, and
right.
that's one of the big issues, right, that he's facing. And I'm not talking about betting your whole future on this. I'm
Right.
talking about turning, buying low now and flipping for, 4 or 5x. You and I have talked about this many of times, not on this podcast, but, if you can turn a $5 card into a $25, $30, $40, $50 sale down the road, that's a great return on your investment. And those are the cards that people are going to be buying. They're going to be affordable. Those are the people that, are willing to spend $40 to $50 on a trendy player. I'm not saying go spend $400 on, a number to 5 RPA and try and flip for 2,000. I mean, that's, I don't think that's sustainable. But if you can, grind things out a little bit and be willing to, just be patient, I think there's some potential with some of these players. And if grading ever comes down, the cost of it, you're sitting on these raw cards. Now all of a sudden you can send those in and get them graded. Your ROI might go up even more.
Yeah, I think we're going to be grading cards for $20 at the end of the year.
I agree. I think so too. I think so
right.
too.
Well,
and that's one of the things.
Yeah,
that's one of the things I think we both agree on, and we can't wait for. I think that's going to give some new kick and new life to the hobby. So that's all I got. That's all I got.
All right, let's call it a night. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and we will talk to you next time.